Hello everybody. I'm going to do another project today on the Ural. So I bought these LED mounts and extra lighting. The kit is designed to put the lights on both sides of the front fender up here. So they're supposed to attach to this bolt right here behind the fork. And what we have are these little guys. So just little aluminum blocks. And when we take out this rear bolt and put that in place, it'll put the light right there alongside the bike. And obviously, same thing over here. Right in there. I know it's not easy to see with everything behind it, but hopefully that'll do what I want it to. I think I could put them up a little higher if I wanted to put them in front. We'll have to see how it turns out. What I've got here, the kit came with an extra pair of the driving lights that the Gearup has on its side over here. I don't know that I'm going to use these. They've got some power to them, but I really wanted something that had a little more reach to it. So I bought these instead. I don't remember which YouTube channel I was looking at, but somebody made use of these, and they seem to work a lot better. So these are aux beam. They're a little bit bigger and seem to have much higher output to them. So we will see. Yeah, I think that'll work back here. I'll have to take a look and just see how this is going to turn out. I may decide to put them up higher here. I'm not quite sure just yet. Anyway, let me play with this a little bit and see what kind of mounting options I've got. I'll get you back in here when I've got some options set up. Alright, got the bolt out. I decided I'm going to put it back here in the rear position. So what we're going to do, put a little Loctite on this bolt, and then we'll slide it out from the inside. There we go. And then I can attach the bracket to the outside of it. Alright, here we go. So, where that sits in that rear position, it's just below the turn signal. If you look at it from the side over here, it's right there behind the fork. I've got it turned ever so slightly toward the outside so it clears the fork nicely. And if we look at it from the front, there we are. So I'll put the other one on to match up with it, and then I'll see about wiring these two. So what I've got for wiring, I've got this wiring harness. So it has a booted waterproof switch and a wiring harness that isn't going to be long enough for what I want to do with this. But my plan, I'd like to put the switch right in here. I want to put it on the left-hand side so I can continue to hold my throttle and my brake when necessary and still operate them. But we'll try to drop it in there, see if I can drill a hole and put it in. Then I could run the electrical back to the battery, which is under the seat down here, but I don't think I'm going to. It was a real pain to try to get that battery connected and disconnected when I did the winch, so I'm going to avoid that if I can do it. What I think I'm going to do instead, over here in the sidecar, there's a fuse block, and there's actually a switched power right over here, so I think I can tee into that and just run the wiring along this front support here and up into the wiring area up behind the headlight. So we'll give that a try, but I'll keep working on it and give you an idea what I have when I get a little closer. Well, I'm not sure if I was just reading the instructions wrong or if somehow I got myself mixed up, but anyway, the way the instructions read, they say, I'm pretty sure, to mount these to the farthest back bolt on the front fender, which is this one here. So I tried putting it back there, but what I found, although this side worked out just fine, it kept it well below the turn signal and it didn't contact anything. over here, I had a problem. So, mounted at that lower back bolt, that you can just barely see back here, what I ended up having was when I would turn the steering to full right lock, the top of this light would contact the steering stabilizer down here. So I went ahead and moved it, and now it's nowhere near the steering stabilizer, so the biggest issue I've got is the light does come pretty close to touching the winch over here. It's not bad, it just barely contacts, and I could probably angle it in just a bit. There we go. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so yeah, that just barely touches right in there, and that's okay. I am all right with that. So I'll make some final adjustments to this, but I think this is the position I want them in. So if we look at it from in front, I think you can see those. There are the new lights on both sides. And as was previously mentioned in one of my other posts regarding that winch, I don't intend to leave it there. I can unplug it and remove it. So right down in here, you can see the Anderson plug right down there. So I can unplug this and I can unbolt it either from this front portion here, or I can take this whole section out next to the engine here. So we'll see how it goes, but I think I'll probably take the winch off of here and probably carry it in the trunk most of the time. Although I do intend to put an extra oil cooler on the side of the sidecar there. I definitely don't want to be overheating the engine, so we'll make some adjustments and see how this goes. So yeah, these are turned out a little bit. I'll tighten them down once I get them arranged where I want them. Obviously, this one on the driver's side left is pointed toward the ground a little bit. So we'll adjust that a little further too. But once I have them set in, then I'll lock them down tight. But yeah, I think we should be good to go for wiring at this point. Here we are with the side view. They tuck up in there pretty nice. And these lights should be able to give me a lot of extra driving capability. And I like the fact that they follow the fork. So as I steer, obviously these lights will point in the same direction as the headlight. My plan at some point is to replace the two driving lights over here on the sidecar with yellow fog lights. They're the same design, just with a yellow lens. I don't know, I've driven with both white driving lights and yellow lights in the fog, and personally, I like having some low light that's yellow when I'm driving through fog, and around here we do get some. So I'll make a few more adjustments to this, add a few more accessories, and bring you back in a little bit. You know, these motorcycles just don't have a lot of space. So what I'm trying to do is install this relay harness that came with the new lights I've got. I do want to connect it directly to the battery, I think I've decided, or pretty close to it. So what I've got over here, this is the negative terminal of the battery right down here, nice and easy to get to. The positive terminal is on the other side, and that one was a bit of a pain. I put some extra stuff on there between the heated grips and the electrical for the winch and things like that. It was actually quite difficult to get this little nut up into position and get the bolt started to hold things down. So I'm sure there's a better way. I've heard something about junction blocks or something else I can put on the battery to add to this, but for now I think I've decided I'm going to try to use this as my negative, so I'll connect directly to the battery. And then up here, if you can see it, right there, that is positive from the battery to the winch's control unit. Now, I'm not going to use the winch very often, so I don't have any issue connecting a positive to this. It's basically like connecting to the battery, and the harness that I've got has a fuse. The only thing is, it's a relay harness. Now, I don't know that I necessarily need this. It's got a 30 amp fuse on it, and based on the numbers, the switch that I want to use for this should be able to handle it without the relay, but because it's here, I'm going to try to use it. So what that means, right up in here, if we set this down about where it's going to go, I don't know if you can see that or not, but up in there you've got a little bit of space between that cross brace and the seat. I just checked, and I think there's room to lay the relay in on top of this brace. So I'm going to give that a try, and we'll see how it goes. There's an extra hole drilled in here, so I might be able to just attach it. But let me give an attempt at that, and I'll show you what it looks like if I'm successful. Well, that worked better than expected. So I've got the relay mounted up in here under the seat. So if we lower this down, there's the front bolt, and you can see here we've got the supports on all sides. So I'll make sure my wiring's out of the way and drop that down in there until these sit down right where I want them, and that fits, shockingly. And there's actually enough room for it. So here's my wiring. This will go down to the battery, so there's plenty of extra here to get to those 2 points I was talking about. This is just a battery charger connection, so that'll be slid up in place. And down here we've got our 3 connection points. So this one is for the switch, so I'll run all 3 of these up underneath the seat, under the fuel tank, and up next to the tree up there. The switch, this one came with a push button. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use a waterproof toggle switch. So I'll run this up, remove this. There's an extra line here for the light for the switch that I won't need, but I'll verify which one is which and make sure that I get this connected. I'll disconnect this clip off of here and attach to the switch. And then I've got these 2. These will each go to a light. So I think what I'm going to do, the harness is a little bit too long, and I really don't want to have a lot of extra wiring hanging out up in there, so I'll probably shorten these up to whatever size I need to get them to the lights. But again, we'll run them up under the fuel tank, bring them down. Probably I'll follow the wiring here if I can. So we'll come down this way and come around the outside and then attach to this wiring here. So this is obviously long enough to get me pretty far up in there also. So I'll make sure that these connect properly, and let's start fishing wires. I think this is going to work okay. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. So down here you can see where all the new wiring is. I ran it up over the intake box, behind the fuel pickups from the tank. Ran up through here. I ran all 3 of them up on the other side with the rest of the wiring. You can see one of them over here. So the switch lead comes up here and comes out. The switch is going to mount right up top here. So I don't know if I can show you this. Let me see. Yeah, that's not working great, but up underneath there's actually plenty of room, so I can drill a hole in that plastic and just mount the switch from behind. So I'll wire it here, and then I can just pick this up and pull it out of the way enough to get in there and do what I need to do. So that'll get the switch mounted. And then over on this side, I'm going to run this wire. Sorry, let's get the switch out of the way. There we go. I'm going to run this wire down along with the turn signal here and attach it to this. So I'll cut this one down significantly. Although that said, this has a much better attachment point to it. So I think what I'll do is cut this sheathing back to allow me to make this short enough to line up. So it should work out pretty well up in here. I'll have to tie wrap some things up to hold it in place. Then on the other side, I've got this one. I'm going to bring this up along with this wiring up here and attach it here to the brake line and go ahead and run it down this way and attach it to the light. So again, I'll probably cut the harness back significantly so I can use as much of this wire as possible. So let me get some parts together and I'll see if I can connect these and show you what it looks like when it's closer to finished. Alright, Well, sorry I didn't get this all videoed. Unfortunately, the camera ran out of battery, and I didn't want to waste the daylight while I was recharging it. So here's where we stand. I cut down the wiring on both sides, and I'm now connected to the new lights up here in front. Obviously, there's still a little bit of extra here. I'm just going to fish this back up inside and tie wrap it in place just to hold it where I want it. I know the right way to do this would be to solder and use shrink wrap, but to be honest, the shrink tubing that I've been able to find is really thin, and I really don't like it for external use like this. I know there has to be some out there that's better for weatherproofing and probably has a thicker coating to it. If anybody knows of where I might be able to find some of that, please feel free to drop a comment and let me know. I know I can get some for the bigger cabling, like number 2 up through 2/0, but for the smaller stuff like this, I just can't find what I'm looking for. So I've been using these weather-resistant butt splices. They work really well. They're nice and easy to put on, as anybody who's used a butt splice knows. And the nice part about it is when you hit these with a heat gun, they do have that extra layer of protection in there, so they're nice and solid. They're not going anywhere. So, to look at the other side over here, this one was a little bit longer. I didn't really intend it that way, but that's okay, there's room. So this one will be fished up inside. So this will be a nice tight fit up against here like that. Ah, more fireworks, perfect. So then the next thing I did, I connected power down here under the seat. So up in here, you've got power connected. As it turned out, I didn't even think about the fact that this one wasn't my hot leg. This was my supply to the winch. I noticed when I realized there were 2 number 4s on here. This one up here is my hot leg. So that's the one I ended up connecting to. It was a little harder to get to, but it's alright. I tried to fish this cover back up into place, but with that extra wire on there, it just doesn't want to go. So it's at least keeping me from having a short in this location, which is the most important spot. Up higher, I'm not as worried about it. So then I connected my negative down here on the battery, and everything's reconnected and ready to go. Then I worked on the switch leg. So here's what I ended up with. There were 3 wires up here. Now I did some testing with the multimeter to see what the resistance was, and between the white and the blue I had a 68 ohm resistance, which tells me that that was the switch leg or the windings on the relay. And then once I had the battery connected, obviously you don't want to check resistance when you've got a battery hooked up, you run the risk of shorting things out. But once I had the battery connected, I switched over to voltage and did a double check just to make sure. And sure enough, the voltage was the way I expected it to. The white leg is the hot, and then both the blue and the black were grounded. So then I took a jumper cable that I made out of some leftover wire, this right here, and I put that between the white and the blue just to make sure that it would operate the relay the way it was supposed to. And sure enough, it did. So I took these little covers off of the wiring that was already part of this harness that was supposed to go here, just to make sure that I had some coverage here, to make sure that I wasn't going to short anything out. And then I've got the switch on here. So let me put you around front so you can see the lights. Wish this display wouldn't keep going black. Okay. Now you can see the lights. Let's flip it on. There we go. And off. So we got lighting. And I used a step bit and just carefully drilled a hole up in the top here. So what I'm going to do is fish this switch in from the underside and put it up through that hole, and then set everything up, and I should be good to go. So I'll check back in with you in a little bit. By the way, I am going to put a little bit of electrical tape around here just to make sure nothing moves and keep everything nice and solid up in there. There we go. So there's our new little switch right down over here, nice and easy to reach. I put it on this side just to make sure that I could still use the throttle and the front brake. and I can always let go over on this side and reach in to flip the switch. So I'll show you just a quick view. A lot more light out front doing it this way. So my plan from here, I'm going to tie up the remainder of the wiring harness with a couple of tie wraps, get the seat bolted back down. So this seat, you've got one bolt up front here, you can see it there, this one right here. So that goes down through this plate, and there's a nut to go underneath it. And then on the back of the seat, up in here, you've got a couple of bolts that go through the fender. So that's these two right here. So what I'll try to do is finagle the seat around until I get those back two started, and then I can easily push this front one in place. Well, I'm running out of daylight, so I still need to tie up the wiring on both sides up front here, but everything else should be finished and ready to go. I've got the seat back in place. I'll push that charger back up in there. There we go. So I've got a cover panel to put in over here. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. So this is the side panel for the Ural. Sorry, there's too much light on there. There we go. So you can see you've got a primary fuse block schematic on here. So this one just has 3 clips on it. It'll attach to the frame up in this position here. So we'll drop this in there. And these up in here. There we go. Okay. And that ought to do it. So the seat's solid. Again, you've got the 2 bolts up inside the fender. You probably won't be able to see those from this angle. There's one, and there's another one across from it. And then you got the single bolt up in the front up here holding it down. And you've got several rubber stops that help hold it in place, give it something to sit on. So yeah, we're ready to go. What I'll do, I'll probably turn this around the other way and see if I can adjust these lights a little bit. And then next chance I get, I'll drop a couple tie wraps up in there and finish it off. But this is a method of installing some fork-mounted lights on a 2022 Ural Gearup. Wow, that's a lot of light. There we go, that's better. So, thanks for coming along on this little project. There will be a couple more on this bike. I intend to swap out the 2 driving lights down here on the sidecar with yellow lens, just because I like those for fog driving and snow and things like that, and I do intend to take this out in those conditions. And a couple of additions on the back at some point. There's a little cargo rack that you can put on here over the tail light here. So I'll drop that in place at some point. And I do want to put a rear bumper on the sidecar. Then on top of it, I still have the trailer wiring to be installed back here to allow me to tow a trailer behind this using the receiver hitch back here. No, I'm not going to tow a big trailer, probably not even a camp trailer. My intent is to just have something that I can stick the canoe on and put it back here. So, this has been the most recent project for the Ural. We'll try to get some driving videos in here soon, but until then, stay safe out there, and I'll see you all over the next horizon.